bom dia a todos. Eu vou falar em inglês porque há convidados que não falam português. Well, thank you very much for coming and welcome. This is our annual seminar. This year is a bit different from the recent years for different reasons. And one reason is something that I would like to recall. You may know that our seminars were done for several years with different embassies under the coordination of Nuno Matos. And he's not any longer with us. I suppose you know that he died about in November last year, 2 weeks after the last seminar he organized. And I felt it was appropriate to mention him and his effort to put the seminar in the roadmap of Portugal, our seminar. Nuno was a very good friend. Indeed, he was more than that. He was my brother-in-law. My wife was his sister. And I would like to take 1 minute just to give a few words about him. He was a senior staff of Portugal Telecom for many, many years. I think maybe 40 years or close to that. Then he retired, and I invited him to start working with us. And he did that for about 10 years. Nuno was a very peculiar character. He had, apart from his work, he was very dedicated to that. He was also extremely dedicated to friends, and it was very impressive in his funeral to see, a big church completely filled with friends from many different sectors and many different ages. He was really from 8 to 80. It was amazing, and I could see that because I have grandsons, and the relation between Nuno and young men and young boys, and it was fantastic. But also he had something which was maybe his bigger motivations for many, many years. He was a top player, a top bridge player. He was an international level player. And he was for many years and many times one member of the Portuguese national team in bridge. So I think it was appropriate to say a few words about him. But life goes on, and here we are again, as I said, on a slightly different format, for different reasons. And one of the reasons has to do with the content, or the theme for this seminar. We felt that, for different reasons, discussing the relevance of research, test and demonstrations facilities to support ocean economy, not only marine renewable energy, was a critical issue. And that has to do with, well, the fact that we are running a project, a European project, called Marineji, to basically prepare the launching of a research infrastructure to apply to the S3, highlighted this relevance of discussing this topic. And indeed, this afternoon we will have a closed session where some stakeholders will discuss this topic. The idea is to have an European network of research infrastructures in support of marine renewable energy, including offshore wind. But to me, it makes sense also to look into these research infrastructures in support to the wider ocean economy, so in particular aquaculture and other aspects. So this seminar is structured in 3 sessions. The first session is dedicated to offshore renewable energy. The second one on to offshore aquaculture, which is something we see with a lot of interest coming up. The technology is starting to be developed, and there is an interest also here in Portugal to proceed with this. And the third session is indeed the infrastructures. And before I conclude, I also would like to say a few words about WavEC and what we did over the last year. Let me see if this works. Yes. So this slide points out the challenges that we put to ourselves for the next few years, with support from our advisory board, which has also a relevant place in this seminar, because two of them will make some two keynotes, and the third one will be the moderator of the third infrastructure. So together with them and the board, we understood that we had this challenge that we could maybe characterize by increasing our income, increasing the size of WavEC, and also diversifying our activity. Last year, 2016, and the previous years, most of this activity was centered in marine renewable energy, in particular in wave energy. And we felt, well, with already some activity on what we call special engineering projects, which are projects related to the ocean, where we apply our capabilities to the ocean, but not directly to energy projects. So we have this, I would say, three challenges. One is to increase, mainly in income, also in size, but mainly in income, because the second challenge that we have is to pay better salaries. We pay, I would say, relatively good salaries for the Portuguese R&D and innovation community. But if we compare to the international salaries, we pay very bad salaries and very small salaries. So that is one challenge, to increase significantly the salaries and to be able to attract the best people wherever they are. And the third challenge is to diversify. And we want to, of course, keep the support to wave energy, but we want to increase offshore wind, we want to be on the offshore aquaculture, and we want to continue to develop these special engineering projects. And indeed, we have been able to do that to some extent. Some of the challenges were, we could target these challenges already this year. In particular, one thing that is not said here, but one of the challenges was also to increase the percentage of consultancy in our activity. Typically, we would be doing about 25% of our income through consultancy and 75% through R&D projects. This year, we were able to go to 40%. And there is a significant difference in this, because with 25%, and it's mainly because we are really a private R&D and consultancy institution. When I say private, it's because we don't get any cents from public funds, except competitive funds. With 25%, we are able to close the year with a zero profit. There is, because the R&D part, the R&D projects, they pay you the costs, but they don't give you any margin. And there are many costs that are not eligible. So it means that we need to have a profit from the consultancy part to cover that. And with 40%, we could conclude the year, we will conclude this year with about 7 to 8% of net result. And that makes a lot of difference, because it means that if we do that, then we can invest. And that's what we are going to do. We are going to invest in innovation projects and in a better structure. So that was very positive. The increase in income was limited, particularly because of reasons that are external to us. Some of the projects that we had started much later than expected because of the funding agency. took much more time than what was expected, and also because one interesting and big project had to be cancelled. Just also to give you a brief overview about our activities. This is concentrated into these 4 areas. We do a lot of engineering, design, and analysis of platforms and components, both nowadays for wind, wave, and aquaculture. We are starting doing this also for offshore aquaculture. We have also capabilities in site selection and in offshore in engineering and economic analysis of offshore farms. We have been working on environmental monitoring and impact assessment, and also in performance assessment, and also strategic assessment. And maybe strategic assessment is less clear what this means, but let me give you 2 examples of 2 projects that we developed this year. We are now completing. One is for Gas Natural Fenosa, which is an utility in Spain about the size of EDP. And we have been doing for them a state-of-the-art analysis, but also a strategic analysis for them to understand how they could enter into this sector of marine renewable energy. So wave, tidal, low-tech, salinity, but also offshore wind, floating offshore, deep water offshore wind. And the second one was with our partner, LOC, in the UK, and it was basically for the utilities that operate in the offshore wind market, a few of them, 6, 7, under the coordination of the Carbon Trust. We did an analysis of how far the existing infrastructures in the UK were prepared to the 500 megawatt floating offshore wind program that exists in the UK. So it was basically to understand if the infrastructures were adequate, whether they should be improved, what were the risks related to the availability of these infrastructures. So this gives you also an idea of the type of projects we have been involved. Also interesting now for the next year, for the forthcoming year, we are going to continue, of course, with this trend. We want to get to 50% of consultancy. We want to increase also in size. And there are some positive developments which came later this year. One is that we'll possibly move to a new building, not far away from here, and it's just across this dock, on offices from the Port Authority here, where we are willing, the agreement is to build a cluster of companies, of technology companies, innovative technologies, companies dedicated to the ocean economy. So we are going to create a cluster with these companies, and we are very excited about this. Also, last month we were we were accepted as what the government calls an interface center. An interface center is a center that, of course, does interface between universities and the industry. And being an interface center, it means that we can apply to something new here in Portugal, which is a base fund for institutions like WavEC. There are about 20. So it is expected that about 30% of our income, or this support, will be up to 30% of our income. And if that becomes true, we will be in a very good position, I'm sure, within 1 year. And I hope that by then I can tell you how things went through this year. There are also two interesting initiatives that also came in the last part of the year, from October onwards. One is the Atlantic Co-Lab. It's a collaborative laboratory, an initiative also from this government, the second half of the year, which for non-Portuguese will be similar to the catapult initiatives in the UK or the Carnot initiatives in France. It's basically a joint effort from companies, interface centers, R&D centers, universities, in different specific areas that will, of course, get support from the government. And this one on the Atlantic focuses on one hand, on a better understanding of the Atlantic system, but also on its sustainable exploitation. And it concerns 4 areas: space technology for ocean observation, in situ ocean observation, energy, and climate change. So an interesting aspect of this collab is that for each job in the collab, we have to provide or to promote 3 jobs outside the collab. So it has to be very much driven by innovation for this to happen. And the other challenge, and this will be referred later by the Minister Manuel Heitor in this the closing of this session, is the Air Center, which is an international development. We expect that it will lead to a new intergovernmental body with a lot, well, of involvement from South Atlantic countries, from Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, but also Africa, South Africa, Angola, Nigeria, Cape Verde, São Tomé, Portugal, Spain, and we hope later also other European countries. But this will be something that Minister Manuel Heitor will refer. And these are very big challenges for WavEC. WavEC is the coordinator of the Atlantic Collab and is also taking important position in the development of the Air Center. So we are also excited about this, still without understanding exactly what will be the impacts from our activity. But it's now time to conclude. Sorry we are a bit delayed, but as Jeanette explained, there was some difficulty for some people to find this place, which is a bit hidden, but now we will move it on now to the second session.